welcome to the Echo Tips podcast. It may sound a little different from here. I'm actually recording this from my home studio, which still needs some additional setup, maybe some soundproofing and things, so the acoustics in here might sound a little different. And I'm actually recording this from home because, unfortunately, I suffered from COVID this past week, and I'm now coming out from underneath it and doing just fine. Had a pretty mild case. But anyhow, this week we're going to be talking about the new 5th generation Echo Dot and why I ordered replacements for all my Echo Dots throughout my house that were the 4th generation, the previous year, 2021. They look identical almost, but I got these new 2022 models. Why did I do that? And we're also going to talk about an announcement recently from Apple about the Apple HomePod. And guess what? It finally got updated. It still exists apparently now that they've brought it back. And it's a little late to the game because it has a feature in it that this Echo Dot in my hands already has. So before we get into that any sort of detail, and we might even mention a little about home automation with the new Matter standard, we're going to go to a brief message about our podcast, and then we'll be right back. This episode is brought to you by New Vision at Goodwill Industries of the Valleys, and also made possible in part by a grant from the Virginia Board for the Blind and Vision Impaired. New Vision is a program of Goodwill that provides information services and assistive technology training to individuals with visual impairments. Goodwill Industries of the Valleys is a nonprofit organization serving Central, Southwest, and Southside Virginia. Goodwill's mission is to empower individuals, strengthen families, and inspire communities. These shows are provided for educational purposes. This podcast may not be retransmitted, sold, or reproduced without written permission from New Vision. Hello again and welcome back to the podcast. It's a pleasure to have you all with us this week. My apologies again about this podcast getting out a day or two a little later than it usually does this week. I suffered from a little bit of COVID this week, a mild case, but still no fun at all. So if you do hear a scratch in my throat or sound a little congested or something like that, that's the reason why. So for our returning listeners, we'd like to welcome you back. And for our new listeners who have wondered what they've got themselves into, you'll find that our podcast is little nuggetized episodes where we talk about things with the Amazon Echo, skills, home automation, new ideas, sales, new hardware as it comes out, things like that. We do some comparisons, all sorts of things that are good for family, youth, parents, caregivers, the elderly, those with disabilities, just all sorts of different situations over the last 5 years. That's right, 5 years that we've been covering this. Why did I go through and replace all my Echo Dots from 2021, the 4th edition, with the new 5th generation 2022 model? They look exactly the same. The sound is very similar. Why? Why did I do that? Well, I'll tell you, it's one of the features that you may not have thought of, or that is a distinction between the two. So I'm going to demonstrate that right now. It's the handy part of me being home right now. Now, this is mic'd a little differently than I would do in the studio. If you do have an echo in hearing distance of me, I'm about to say the lady name, so you may want to shut its ears off. I'll just give you a second to do that, if you will. All right, hopefully give you it. Okay, now I got this echo here. Let's give this a try. Alexa, what temperature is it in the office?
The home office temperature is 67.5 degrees.
All right, there we go. Turn the volume up a little bit. Alexa, what temperature is the living room?
The living room temperature is 68.7 degrees.
Okay, now watch this. This is cool. You can get an aggregate of the whole house. Alexa, what's the temperature of the house?
The average temperature of the home is 68 degrees.
All right, so there you go. So that is super cool feature on the new 5th generation 2022 edition of the Echo Dot. So let me push the physical turn her ears off. There we go, and I'll sit her down here on the desk. So physically, they look very similar. The only major distinction is there's no audio out jack, like a headphone jack that you could pipe it to a separate stereo. The major improvements are the one, as you just heard, the temperature, a built-in thermometer into each unit. And the other feature that's kind of, I don't know, we're going to see where that goes, is almost like an accelerometer feature. So it can sense when it's been touched on the top of the device, not when you're hurling it across the room because you're angry at it. I know it. So you were thinking with the accelerometer. But no, it can feel when you tap it because it's like a cloth on the whole exterior. If you haven't seen the new softball design, if you kind of touch it or slap it on the top, it does still have the physical buttons, but if you do that currently, it's preset to pause audio, I believe. So, it's going and somebody calls you on the phone. You don't have to try and yell at it, or you just kind of tap it on the top of the phone and it stops playing. So kind of handy. Of course, it still has the physical buttons, the volume up, down, all those kind of things. Okay, so that's basically a little quick snapshot of that again. So practically, what does that give you? Well, with me, I'm in a new apartment and I have heating and air units in each of my rooms, which can be separately set with a remote control. And it's not a smart system really per se. It is electronic in that it has a remote, I guess, but it isn't smart per se. And one of the problems I ran into is like, is it really 70 degrees in here? It's set to 70 to heat it up to 70. And then I had one of these new 5th generation Echoes, the 2022 model, that I had purchased just so I could play with the new features. I had it sitting in my office, and I went and asked her what temperature it was in the office. She's like, it's 80 degrees. So I realized right away I had a problem with my thermostat. So then after that, I got smart and I said, hey, over the holiday season, I got them for like $27 a piece here in the United States. Right now in January, even after the sales, they're about $35 a piece. So they're still running them somewhat on sale. So yeah, I replaced all the ones I had with these, and I get that cool ability to query each individual room separately, and the ability to, I'm sorry, my dinging computer, I also get the ability to get that aggregate, which I really wasn't expecting that, where it like takes all the temperature readings from all the different Echoes in the house, and it gives me an aggregate of that. So, wow, super, super cool. I'm really impressed by that. Now, the cool thing you can do with that is you could pair that with routines to do different things, to run fans, to do other things. Now, here's where I ultimately plan on going with this, and maybe we'll do a demo of that too once I get it set up. But as I said, my thermostat system in the house is a train units with different units in different rooms. They're called mini splits, each individually controlled by a remote. But they're not really smart or connected to Wi-Fi. But you can buy something like a Honeywell device that's an infrared, like universal remote that can be permanently placed in each room that's in line of sight of that, and then is Alexa compatible. So if I had those set up, my Alexa could give the command to the, say it was a Honeywell infrared repeater or whatever, and it would do the negotiations. It would basically act like the remote control, send the signal to the thermostat and say, hey, it's 80 degrees in here, shut off, Or I could basically turn my otherwise dumb thermostat, dumb system into a smart system. I could set schedules. Hey, every weekday when I leave for work, hour after I leave, turn the heating down, turn the air conditioning down, save power during the day, and an hour before I arrive home from work, turn everything back up to the way I would like it. So some really cool things you could possibly do with that. For me, I'm visually impaired, so I can't really tell. I can't really independently tell what the thermostat is set to, or, and using the remote is kind of kludgy. So the ability to verbally command it would be awesome. And with the separate individual thermometers built into the Echoes themselves, I kind of have an interesting check and balance on that. Because if the thermostat is off, I can say, hey, what temperature is it in here? And be like, oh, it's super cold or it's super hot. And what's going on? And so that's pretty cool too. Anyway, so that kind of wraps those things up. Now, I mentioned earlier this week, Apple announced the resurrection, if you will, of the Apple HomePod. Now, it is a smart device, kind of like the Echo Dot. It's a competitor to it. They have currently had one that looks almost identical to the Echo Dot called the Apple HomePod Mini. And it's a snow globe shape, everything. It has some touch sensors on the top, but it's bizarre. It looks pretty much the same. Now, they released a new one, which is much bigger than that, and the price shows. I think it's like $299, $399. But I'm mentioning all of this because the Echo Dot here is the first to the game, and that the Apple HomePod now has a built-in thermometer and humidity meter. And so you can start to see a lot of those home automation things, energy conserving things, tracking your home environment things, are all starting to come to these devices. Now, the new HomePod 2 will support the new Matter standard for home automation devices, light bulbs, cameras, smart switches and plugs, and blah, blah, blah. The list goes on and on, Now, obviously, the Echoes and Amazon products have been there for a while. I don't know if they've implemented the full stack, including Thread. I know they've announced when it's supposed to be released. I'm not really keeping up with it too much, mostly because I dipped my toes into this to buy some things for the house, and I was going to try and buy things for my new apartment that were Matter certified. Now, when they're Matter certified, in theory, this is where we're going here in the next year, an Alexa, a Siri device, or a Google Assistant device can all control those devices independently. It's to like to bring unification, if you will, to the mess that has been home automation. But I'll tell you here, I shopped even for the dumbest of things, like smart plugs recently that were Matter certified, and it's still it's right at the cusp. We're just starting to get stuff released. There's a lot of bugginess on the platforms right now, so a lot of this has got to be worked out, but we're going to probably hear a lot more about that here in the next year, and I'll try and tackle some of that as it comes out, and maybe some of those things with my thermostat controller and stuff we might tackle and things like that. You've already seen me do a washer and dryer segment and a microwave segment. If you haven't seen those, go back and check those out. I guess I didn't do a follow-up on the washer, but I have set it up, so I might need to be doing that as well. All right, guys. Well, that brings this segment to a close. If you'd like to learn more about me, you can go to our website, goodwillvalleys.com/newvision, all lowercase and no spaces. If you'd like to reach out to with us thoughts and comments, you can do so at info@goodwillvalleys.com. That's the email address. And or you can also reach out to us on Facebook or Twitter at Goodwill Industries of the Valleys. That's the name you would look up on Facebook or Twitter and say, hey, I had a question about Dave's podcast, the Echo Tips podcast, or could Dave cover this skill or this set of things? We'd like to hear this. Then please reach out to me on those mediums or whatever, like I said, the email, and just let me know. All right, well, once again, it's that time. Turn the ears back on your Echo. Start practicing some of the many things that you've learned. I'm David Ward for the New Vision program, and we thank you for listening. I'm David Ward for the New Vision program, and we thank you for listening.
Thanks, Dave. Let me tell you a bit more. Let me put on my official sounding voice. Ahem, ahem. This episode is brought to you by New Vision at Goodwill Industries of the Valleys and also made possible in part by a grant from the Virginia Board for the Blind and Vision Impaired. New Vision is a program of Goodwill that provides information services and assistive technology training to individuals with visual impairments. Goodwill Industries of the Valleys is a nonprofit organization serving Central, Southwest, and Southside Virginia. Goodwill's mission is to empower individuals, strengthen families, and inspire communities. These shows are provided for educational purposes. This podcast may not be retransmitted, sold, or reproduced without written permission from New Vision. Phew! Thanks for listening.